Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the State of the Fan Address. My name is Nick Villano of the Pucks and Pitchforks blog, and as usual, I'm with the one, the only, Sam Wu. How we doing, Sam?
Good, Nick. We're back on the air on the Let's Go Devils podcast network. State of the Fan Address, episode 9. We're already at episode 9 on Facebook Live.
How did that happen?
Oh, I don't know. We just kept on doing podcasts, right? So we're on Facebook Live. You can like our Facebook page at Let's Go Devils Podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at Let's Go Devils Pod. We're also on YouTube Live on our YouTube channel. Subscribe. Let's Go Devils is the channel. We're also on iHeartRadio. We're on Spotify. We're streaming live on letsgodevils.com. And anyway, I got all the plugs in. So let's get to the topic at hand right now.
Yeah, there's actually quite a lot that happened today. The schedule got released. We're not even going to, I don't know if you want to dive into that at all, but let's
go through all the details. The Jack
game by
Hughes
game
press conference. Yeah, let's just. Where do we start? Where do we start?
Let's start with the Hockey Hall of Fame. Because I feel like that's going to be a quick hitter, and I think that's going to be a fun one because I kind of want to go over it with you. So the Hockey Hall of Fame. It was the first year that Patrik Elias, the Devils' best forward that's ever played in New Jersey, he did not make it. It was only his first year of eligibility though. Who did make it was Haley Wickham-Sham, Sergei Zubov. Help me with that other name. It's Guy
Carbonneau. For some people, it's Guy Carbonneau.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's those Canadian names. And then a couple of the builders. It's a female hockey player that's the leading name on the Hockey Hall of Fame list, and I'm all for pushing the women's hockey leagues and the NWHL and things like that further, but it does say something when the most recognizable name is a female hockey player. So, it's an interesting class.
Yeah, it's a very interesting class. I'm wondering if the Hall of Fame selection committee were all Dallas Stars fans. I mean, we have two, Guy Carbonneau and Sergei Zubov. I'm half joking, half not. Not much. Yeah. Other than that, Patrik Elias. Did they give the percentage of the voting? Like, if he?
I haven't seen that out there yet.
Okay.
I haven't seen that out there yet, so I'm not 100% sure what he got. If he was close, I know that ESPN put an article together after the Hockey Hall of Fame was announced. It's his way too early picks for the 2020 Hall of Fame. And Patrik Elias is tied for 10th with Theo Fleury.
Wow.
That's what I wanted to kind of get into it. I want to get into, how do you feel about Elias's chances right now? They don't look good. So here's who's coming out for their first year next year. It's two big names. It's Jerome McGinley and it's Marian Hossa. Those are the two names that are the big names that are coming out next year that, have a likelihood of getting in. The other first-year guys, I don't think any of them have much of a chance at all. Shane Doan, who's, a very good Ring of Honor type player for the Arizona Coyotes. He's not a Hall of Famer. Brian Campbell, really good on the 2010 Chicago Blackhawks team, not a Hall of Famer. Mike Ribeiro, who they weren't going to put in because, he's had a lot of issues, and he was fine. Patrik Elias is head and shoulders above what he's ever been. So a lot of those first-timers, I think Hossa and McGinley are the other guys, but, Jeremy Roenick, who a lot of people thought was getting in this year, didn't get in this year. Daniel Alfredson didn't get in this year. Alexander Mogilny didn't get in this year, and he's running out of time. Rod Brindamore, the current Hurricanes coach didn't get in. But I mean, I like Elias personally a lot above a lot of these guys. I thought he was more consistent. I thought he was great up until maybe that last year. He did deal with a couple injuries and he did deal with the sickness that, coming out of the lockout. But even despite that, over 1,000 points, it's a big deal. But Sam, after next year, you might think, hey, maybe he has a chance. Well, 2021 is the impossible year because you got Daniel and Henrik Zedin, Rick Nash, and Henrik Zetterberg. So what do you think? Do you think this might have been the chance for Elias and it's kind of gone already?
Gone in 1 year? I mean, how fair is that? I mean, I've had a lot of beef with the selection committee for a while. Now, granted, it does change from time to time. I think, what is it, 3-year rule before they change who the voters are? Is that true, or I don't remember?
It's something like that. I'd have to look up the exact rules. I don't want to.
Yeah, it's something like that. But I've had a bitter taste in my mouth ever since the Pat Burns movement, to get him into the Hockey Hall of Fame while he was still alive. And I'm still mad over that. And I know that maybe it has nothing to do with this conversation, but I got to tell you, I lost confidence in this whole thing about selecting players and builders and all that. I hope that you would think, and I'm sure they do, they put a lot of thought into it. But when they blew that Pat Burns selection, I was not too happy, and I almost lost confidence in the Hockey Hall of Fame. Now, granted, Martin Brodeur, I'm a biased fan. I think he should have had the waiver for first year, but that was only really reserved for Gretzky and I think Lemieux.
Did they do it for Lemieux?
I don't remember. I really don't remember, but I think for Gretzky they did, which is again well deserved. But if you're the number one in the position by far, you should get that waiver. Heck, you should be in the Hockey Hall of Fame within an hour of your retirement. I mean that's that's the way that. But that Pat Burns thing irked me. Patrik Elias, does he deserve to go into the Hockey Hall of Fame? Yes. Now, what is the limit? You talked about McGillney. What is the limit before they stop?
15 years.
15 years?
Yeah. So Fleury, I think Theo Fleury's on his 14th. So maybe that's the only reason why I could think he's even on this list. I don't think Theo Fleury has any chance. Theo Fleury is one of those guys that when I was a kid, I kept his hockey card because, he was a decent enough player to keep his hockey card, but he wasn't a player that I thought would be worth something someday because he's Theo Fleury. He's fine.
Yep.
But we'll move on. So that was our Hall of Fame conversation. Like I said, it wasn't much. It was just a quick hitter. But I do want to talk about, like you said, Jack Hughes spoke today. I think the biggest thing, he's Jack Hughes. He's been saying the right things to the media. He was at Yankee Stadium yesterday, and he was talking to everybody at Yankee Stadium yesterday. He was on every broadcast, it felt like, and I feel like he keeps saying the same things. He's entertaining enough that they keep putting him on TV, and he says enough off the cuff stuff, but he says it in the most professional manner, and it's. I mean, this kid is like built for this media frenzy that he's been facing, and. Sam, I'm really excited because it has been a media frenzy. There has been a lot of media around. There has been a lot of people talking about the New Jersey Devils. I saw on your podcast on Sunday night, you were talking about the Devils being the back page of the of one of the New York newspapers. So, it's a big deal for New Jersey Devils right now.
Absolutely. I've seen a lot of his interviews. I mean, that's what happens when you have a potential mega superstar, that's just coming out, just got drafted. There's going to be a lot of hype, a lot of the same questions. Everybody's it's just like, I wish there were better questions, and I wish there was, it's almost, and this is not a knock on Jack. It's almost that he's been trained for this moment. And it kind of reminds me, and this is a compliment to Jack Hughes, his demeanor reminds me when Sidney Crosby was drafted back in 2005. Sidney Crosby, looking back, and granted, yeah, we handed that Parisi's better opening night after the year-long lockout, having a little fun with Sidney Crosby, but the focus and the determination, like he wanted to be that guy. Sidney Crosby is vicious with his focus. You talk about, some of the incidents that passed. Remember that slash? I believe it broke somebody's wrist. I forgot. Yeah. This and that. He will do anything to win, even if it means whining to the refs. He will do whatever it takes, that demeanor. And I kind of see that in Jack Hughes. Yes, a lot of the questions that he's answering, it kind of sounds like, status quo. I can almost like ad-lib it, I can almost like predict it. But at the same time, I am so impressed. An 18-year-old would be that focused and has his priorities straight. Like, he almost seems like he's not fazed by any of this, that he's embracing the intention, not so much for the attention, but to be the elite, best hockey player in the world. That's the kind of feeling I'm getting, because I've never seen anything like this since Sidney Crosby.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with you on a lot of that. I definitely think, and by no means were you comparing him on the ice to Sidney Crosby yet. Obviously, he's an 18-year-old. Yeah. He is a great talent. He's probably one of the best players we've ever drafted, coming out like one of the best talents we ever drafted, maybe since Niedermeyer, way back when, because Niedermeyer obviously fell to us to that third pick that we traded from Toronto, and he was always thought of as one of the best talents. But I think Hughes has him beat. Beyond that, I think that this kid just, it helps that he watched his brother get drafted last year. It helps that he grew up in a hockey household where his mother and father were professional players. So he kind of got to learn the ropes very early. And his father, his parents probably learned very quickly that he had a chance to be at this level of draft pick. So they could train for this since he was 14. When the rumblings of probably agents and scouts started say, I went to go see the 17-year-old kid, but this 14-year-old kid we got to talk about. So I think that this guy, Jack he's just doing, I've never, Nico had a really good first week when he got drafted by the Devils. He went to Hobby's Deli, he went to the Yankee Stadium. He did a decent amount of press, decent. I think it kind of got thrown under the rug slightly because his English wasn't perfect at that point. He could speak English. He was fine, but he wasn't, he's not an American like Jack Hughes. And now we got Jack Hughes, this American who's going on WFAN. He's, I feel like the next thing he's doing is he's going to host a summer edition of Saturday Night Live. He's been everywhere around New York lately. And I've just never seen anybody surround themselves with the talent, any talent. There's been stars on this Devils team. It was a 3-time Stanley Cup champion. And the first time I've seen this, the media surround one player on this team before is the guy who hasn't stepped on the ice. It's insanity.
Yeah. And again, going back to Sidney Crosby, yes, just to reiterate, I'm talking about the mental and the demeanor when Sidney Crosby just first came into the league, when he was just drafted, and I saw some clips again, I'm sure that they edited for this stuff. He seems like a fun kid as well when he was, goofing around, and and I think he was waiting for that moment finally came when he got to sign autographs for those 6 or 8 Devils fans that were lined up in Vancouver waiting to see him. I mean, that is just, I mean, for those people that got to see, those Devils fans that traveled from New Jersey to Vancouver to get his autograph and get a selfie or picture or whatever, that will last a lifetime. This kid is going to be amazing. And not only that, here's a difference between Sidney Crosby and Jack Hughes after they were drafted. For us, he's ours. He's an American, a U.S. born in Orlando, Florida. That's where he was born. I was just like, whoa, Orlando.
Yeah,
Florida.
how many hockey players are born in Orlando, Florida? We got two of the best hockey players, or two of the last 5 number 1 overall picks are from Orlando and Phoenix, Arizona. Yep. What's going on?
Yep. So, with that said, can the Canadians and the people in the Northeast, hockey's doing just fine down south, and now we're seeing the fruits of Gary Bettman's labor. And I hate to admit, I know a lot of fans don't like him. Hockey fans don't like him, but you know what? He took the initiative to expand down south, and when everyone says it would not last, well, Tampa's still there, and they're thriving. They're thriving. Dallas won a Stanley Cup, just like Tampa. They did the grassroots level. They built. The first thing they did when they moved the franchise from Minnesota, remember the Minnesota North Stars, down to Dallas, was they built rinks and built a community. And now the Devils are, have a byproduct of those efforts. Blake Coleman. I mean, and Blake Coleman's pretty exciting. He's a good player. He's a very good player. So, with all that said, getting back, and we don't want to beat a dead horse. I like what I see so far, but in the end, okay, once the fun's over, the party, dies down, it's time to get to work. Rookie camp. Jack, that's where Jack, is good. It's just like any rookie. You're gonna learn, and he's got a handful of Devils veterans to make sure that he stays on track. And help him. And then whenever he has questions or he's doing something not right, they will, mentor him so he can, fulfill his potential.
And rookie camp's only about 4 weeks away. It's usually in the middle of July is when rookie camp starts.
Yep.
So this is all going to happen. This is, I love this, and you must love this because it's content after content after content. There's so much to talk about. Like I said, there's 5 things that came out today, but you think that things end when free agency ends, and it doesn't. Rookie camp starts 2 weeks later, and then the week before we get to talk about the rookie camp rosters and the roster invitees, and which draft picks are going to be there, and who are some of the older guys, and that's the one thing. It's kind of sad, but that's the one place where I'm going to miss John Quenneville, is because he was great at those rookie camps, is getting those guys up to speed and getting them to be, professional hockey players, go from the amateur or, the overseas leagues to playing the NHL. And John Quenneville was great at that first step. So that's kind of going to be where we miss him. Obviously that's not a reason to keep a player, but, just pointing that out. But Jack, he's just doing all the right moves. He's saying all the right things. But I feel like we're going to be talking about Jack all summer. I feel like, he's literally going to be a topic of a conversation for probably about every podcast that the Let's Go Devils podcast does. So let's move on to, like I said, there was just a ton that happened today. So let's move on to the schedule. Let's move on to the schedule release. Sam, have you looked at the schedule?
Yes, I have. And I've already got some dates for the Let's Go Devils podcast events. Simmering. I'll let the cat out of the bag a little bit, but again, this is just preliminary. October 4th against Winnipeg, the home opener. Jack Hughes' first official appearance in an NHL game, regular season game. We're looking to do a live event for that night, a pregame event, pregame festivities, the Let's Go Devils podcast. And then October 5th, they're on the road to Buffalo. We're also thinking of doing a viewing party back to back. So we're gonna be exhausted by the end of that Saturday, October 5th, doing that. But we want to, we want to start the season off with a bang. Also, October 17th, Devils Rangers.
Devils Rangers.
Yes. Now I'm doing this on top of my head, so hopefully I got the date right. But I believe it was October 17th.
You definitely got Edmonton and New York right. I'm not, and if it's that first one's a back to back, then you're doing well, Sam.
Yeah, and then also Saturday afternoon primer, November 30th at the Rock, Devils Rangers. Again, it's the NHL. Possibly NBC Sports, they are going to absolutely eat this up rivalry. I mean, I'm already, as a Devils fan, and I want to ask all the Devils fans at Facebook Live, Periscope, Twitter, and YouTube Live, the chat rooms right now, I'm already starting to get the cadence right of chance at these Devils Ranger games. Kako, I'm not going to give him out on this podcast. It's not what this podcast is all about tonight, but I'm already starting to rehearse chance. Yeah, I'm already rehearsing it in the car, what I'm going to yell and scream at Kako. Okay, now, there's nothing personal against Kako, but when you're wearing a New York Rangers uniform, you're going to get it from Devils fans, and it's going to be relentless, and it's going to be like it's like I got to get him when he's young and start get that edge in where he has fear coming to the Rock, he has fear driving down, going hard to the net because he knows he's going to get knocked down, and he knows he's going to go against a very, very hostile Prudential Center, the Rock crowd, knowing that the counterpunch is going to be Jack Hughes, the guy that got selected ahead of him, the Golden Boy, the American that was born in Florida, that could be one of the greatest players of all time. And again, we should dial it back a little bit, but potentially he can be. So with that said, November 30th, that's a good date. December 21st, I believe there may be a viewing party hooked up with a charity with Noel and Rob from Devils Diehards. I haven't heard back from them, but that could actually happen. And Matt, maybe you could say that in the chat room, but try to keep it clean. And but I'm also proposing, again, I don't know how we're going to do this, Garden Invasion March 7th against the New York Rangers, taking the podcast on the road into Manhattan with 50 of our fellow Devils fans. But we're going to have to do this. We're going to have to do this discreetly. I was also daydreaming of doing a live podcast on a charter bus from Newark to Manhattan with our best podcast fans, so Devils Diehards, the Let's Go Devils group, and fans of the New Jersey Devils, those groups. That would just be.
We got to get the Pucks and Pitchforks fans out there too.
Yeah, and also Cheryl Miller says, speaking of Hughes, everyone's talking about Hughes picking 86 and saying all this stuff. I think it's just because he doubled 43. Did he say why he chose that number?
So I learned this today. He was actually 86 in like Pee Wee hockey, and that was the number he wore. Apparently 6 is a family number, and they all pick a first number. And then he explained this in the Devils podcast that he did with Amanda and
Matt Laughlin,
who you had on Sunday. So he apparently explained that, and apparently 43, he wasn't allowed to have 86 on the U.S. national team. So he actually halved 86 to be 43. So that's where 43 came from. Apparently 86 was first. So that's kind of, how that all ties in. So it looks like that's going to be his number. It looks like, I was thinking that maybe he picked 86 until, Andy Green retired, and then he would move to 6. but it sounds like 86 might be the number for good.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Also, think of marketing. Okay. Think of this. If I was the Devils marketing team right now, and that was his only year wearing that number, just like Joe Sakic. Didn't Joe Sakic wear a different number in his rookie year before he went to 19? And I've compared,
a lot of players did.
And I've been comparing Jack Hughes to Joe Sakic a lot recently, just based on videos, highlight videos I've seen, the limited highlight videos I've seen of Jack Hughes, and all the YouTube videos of Joe Sakic. I mean, that guy, was a great hockey player, Hall of Famer, right? Yeah, he was probably first ballot. Joe Sakic, wasn't he?
I don't know if he was first ballot, but he's in the Hall of Fame. Sakic wore 88 in his first year, and we could, Martin Brodeur wore 29 in his first year.
Oh yeah,
So it's kind of those awkward, and it's funny because Joe Sakic was in Quebec. He was with the Nordiques in that first year, and Brodeur had the old Devils red and green that first year. So it's an awkward jersey with an awkward number. So that's always funny. And I always see one couple at the Rock, and the female of the couple always wears the 29 Brodeur jersey every time I go to the Rock. So I always enjoy that. I always enjoy that jersey every time I go there. The little blast from the past.
Yeah, even like in rookie camp and in training camp, I remember Scott Gomez had a different number before he became 23. So it
happens all the time.
Yeah, but you know what? If I were the Devils, once Andy Green retires or is off the team or whatever, have Jack. Kobe Bryant had two numbers, 8 and 24. It does happen.
I think Kobe Bryant had 3 numbers.
3 numbers. Wow.
Oh no, that's Jordan. Jordan had 3 numbers. I'm sorry.
Jordan? Oh, okay. 23, 45. I don't know what the other one is.
I think he was 8. But anyway, that's not here nor there.
Okay.
Anyway, but so I was looking into this schedule a little bit. A couple of people have pointed things out to me, and I appreciate that to the fans out there. But the schedule makers did us no favors, Sam, and that's nothing new. We have 16 back-to-back games. 16, including 2. I believe it's in the first week. Yeah, we have 2 back-to-backs in the first week. Our first 4 games are a set of two back-to-backs. You talked about the Winnipeg and the Buffalo game. Then we have to wait 3 days for Devils hockey. Come back on Wednesday. Go to Wells Fargo Arena, play the Philadelphia Flyers. Then come home and we play Edmonton on the 10th. So. And that's one of 16. And 11 of those back-to-backs, Sam, are home road back-to-backs. So we don't even get to sleep in the same bed for those back-to-backs.
Do you know what really, what that kind of reminds me of? Again, not to harp on bad times. Remember the 93-94 season when the Devils had, 17 to 18 back-to-back games and the Rangers only had 7 or 8 that season?
That sounds familiar. That sounds familiar.
Yeah.
I think
you know what? Let me tell you something. Don't tell me that season was somewhat rigged for the New York Rangers. 94 All-Star game happened to be at Madison Square Garden in Manhattan. The darling Rangers and the Devils had a great season. They started that season hot, but their Achilles heel was that schedule, those back-to-back. It does make a difference. It really does. Sorry, I just went on my little rant there, but it still bothers me to this day how lopsided some of the scheduling are. Now, granted, a lot of Western Conference teams will say, Sam Wu, you're an idiot. Do you know what it's like to be on the West Coast and then travel to the East Coast and all the time zones and the amount of travel? I mean, that's a lot of distance between those cities out in the West Coast. But in the East, I mean, heck, half of the team can just walk over to the Garden from Prudential Center. They literally can walk over and take the train, subway, whatever. But I don't like these back-to-backs. I hate them. And it's but luckily if Corey Schneider and Blackwood are performing well as a tandem, I think they're not going to get worn out as quick. But man, as a goalie, only one goalie that could really withstand that kind of schedule, and that's Martin Brodeur. The durability that he had, the way he played the game, he was very efficient when he played the game. And again, I didn't mean to rant on that, but it still pisses me off to this day how lopsided that was, and it does make a difference.
See, no, I'm with you, and I want to just kind of run back to the point you just made about the Schneider and Blackwood, and having those two goalies is really going to help. And I thought the same thing about, I think it was 2014, we had 15 back-to-backs, and I said that was the year that we got Corey, and we had Brodeur still. So I thought, like, hey, we have these two goalies, these two, Brodeur was not Brodeur at that point, but he was still competent for the most part. He was past his prime, way past his prime, but I still thought he was an NHL goalie. And you had Corey Schneider, who was, borderline elite getting to that point. So I thought that we had it was a really good situation, but it's still because your forwards are tired and your defensemen are tired. And, if one of them goes into overtime, then you're really screwed. Because then, like say, there's a back-to-back in November. That's Calgary on the 7th, Edmonton on the 8th. You go to overtime in Calgary, you're playing at around midnight our time, maybe a little later. And then you got to get on a plane, and then you got to be ready for a game the next day when your body clock's all messed up. So I just don't think the schedule makers did us a lot of favors, and then, that first month might be one of the most important because we got, at the end of October into the 1st of November, there's a 6-game homestand. This team's supposed to gel with all these new players, PK Subban playing a new defense, Jack Hughes playing his first games, and they give us this, right? I mean, the schedule is just not great. I'm not happy about this schedule, Sam.
I'll tell you also, and I'm going to ask the folks at Facebook Live, Twitter, Periscope, and YouTube Live this question. And Shorts Guy was texting me ferociously around 12:01 p.m., I believe. Where the heck is the schedule? Why am I only getting parts of it? What are they just releasing it? It's just spoon feeding the schedule. And he sent me screenshots. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. So I shared this too.
Yeah.
Where
so
they shared about the first 31 games. But they weren't the first 31 games. It was 31 games scattered across the season. At one point, it said we had played 4 games in October and 2 games in November, and you're just like, what? I'm looking at it. I'm like, and I had a fan point this out to me, and I was like, no. They asked me like, oh, where's the schedule? And I was like, oh, here's the schedule. And I just sent them the link because I sent them the NHL link because I was looking at another place and it was right. But I just sent them the NHL link because I like the way they format it and the way it laid out. But I wasn't really paying attention. And they were like, we only played 4 games in October? And I was like, that doesn't sound right. And I looked at it and I was like, nope, none of this is right. So I don't know if that was a glitch in the NHL thing.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm trying to put it on my camera because I didn't put it in the computer, but that's what it looks like. I was like, 4 games. I was like, wait a second. Is this a season ticket package that the Devils are selling? And that's all you get that month in October? I didn't know what that was. And
I just knew it was wrong because it was missing the Rangers game. I knew the Rangers game was October 27th or October 17th. So when I saw that wasn't there, I was like, this ain't right. So we're mad at the NHL. We're mad for them for messing up our schedule, and then we're mad at them for giving us a hard schedule. We're just mad.
Yeah, just mad. It's mad all around. It's that time of year. We're Devils fans. We're just not satisfied. We expect perfection, But yeah, and I almost, and thank goodness I bit my tongue because when Short Scott was texting me this, I was like, "Are you an idiot? Just hit refresh. It's got to be there." So instead of being negative, I was like, "Screenshot, please," with a question mark. And then he's like, well, I'm not at my Mac. And then suddenly he sends me all of it. And I felt bad. And then right when he sent me April, my text back was the entire schedule. He's like, where'd you get that? I'd be like, magic.
Poor shorts guy.
Poor sports guy. He probably spent 20 minutes trying to figure out the schedule because we want to know so we know how to plan these live events, right? So, and it's important for us because we want to make sure that we schedule guests accordingly. And, there's other people holding events too, and they'll be nameless. But, when we plan these events, the one thing that we like to do is not charge people at the door. But it takes time, and you need to leave yourself enough time. That's why you need an NHL schedule right away. And you're only getting 4 games in October? I can't plan. NHL, what the heck are you doing? Anyway.
Yeah, you gotta fix that. There's too much money on the line. But let's move on. That's enough of the schedule. We've gotten on our soapbox. Let's get off our soapbox. Let's get back to positivity. It's the power of positivity, Sam. And I want to talk about free agency. Now, before we get into the positives and who I think the Devils could go after and who you think the Devils could go after, let's talk about a sad. I don't know if you want to call it sad. It's part of the business, but the Devils released their qualifying offers for restricted free agents today.
Who made out well?
Well, nobody signed yet. So it sounds like it just means that, if the Devils lose this player, they are eligible for draft pick compensation. So, Will Belcher got one, Paul Zaka got one. The obvious, Connor Carrick got his, and he was kind of on the fence. Mirko Mueller got his. He was less on the fence. But I think it's more interesting of the ones, there's 3 who did not get it. Cam Johnson, the goalie in Binghamton. Ryan Murphy, the guy we traded for in the middle of the season for Kapla. And then the big, so I don't know if you want to call it surprise because I kind of expected it, but Stefan Nason is no longer a New Jersey Devil. Do you have any parting words for Mr. Nason on his 2.5-year tenure with the Devils?
Well, this is what I have to say. Mr. Nason, we appreciate your service with the New Jersey Devils. It helped us bring 1 playoff appearance and 2 first overall picks. I always thought your last name was pronounced Nosen, that you had a hard nose to the front of the net, in front of the crease. But I'm joking around. Hey, I like these kind of players, but when you have now talent on the 4th line of Zaka, McLeod, yes, I said Mikey McLeod, all right? When you have that kind of talent on your 4th line, potentially, these guys, these grinders, unless you're scoring goals and, night in and night out, they're going to get the shaft. And there's not a knock on him. Just look at this roster right now. It's deep. It's really deep. It's young, fast, and deep. And you still have Travis Zajac there, but, there's just simply no room for him. He'll find another team.
I think he will. I think he'll get, I don't think he'll be signed right away, but I think he might be end of July, early August signing where teams are trying to find those extra guys on the cheap to try to fill out those rosters. I could see a team like Edmonton maybe signing him, trying to, see if he could build off some of the magic he had, the year before last. And you're exactly right when you talked about just look at this 4th line. I mean, this 4th line, it could have, and this is with signing nobody. They could have, Rooney, Bastian, McLeod, Zaka, and a couple other guys that look real good. I mean, if Boquist makes this team right now, you could have Miles Wood on the 4th line.
Yep. Oh, so, absolutely. Competition's going to be tight.
This is going to be one of the most fun preseasons I think we've ever seen. Maybe as fun as 2 years ago, when we saw the surprise in Jesper Bratt and Brian Gibbons making the roster. And I think Coleman I'd have to remember. I don't remember if he was a surprise making the roster or whatever. I just remember that Miles Wood was sitting on that first night, and he was not happy. They they put the camera on him to do the first night introductions of the entire team, and he might as well have been cursing because he was looking with just death in his eyes through the camera, like I can't believe I'm in this owner's box. And that was the year he scored 19 goals. So I think that might have been one of the best things to motivate the kid. But since then, I can't remember a better competition going into preseason. And we haven't signed unrestricted free agency starts in a couple of days, and we still have this competition.
Yeah, and if you look at the blue line, right now, the amount of right-handed mobile defensemen right now is getting me, scoring potential scoring defensemen is getting me really, really giddy. Just really, really giddy. I mean, literally, you could have each pairing with a right-handed paired with the left-handed. Not saying that it really matters in the grand scheme of things, but right-handed defensemen that are mobile, that can flat out play, especially on the power play, come at a premium in this league. Premium.
Yeah, and which is what makes it.
Which makes it amazing.
Yeah, it's just that's what makes it crazy that the Devils got PK Subban for the price they got. They got an elite right-handed defenseman for I don't want to be like mean to our ex-players. I don't want to call Santini and Davies and 2 second-round picks peanuts, but comparative to what it returned one of the best defensemen in the league. He's no doubt top 10. When he's at his best, he's top 5. So, and maybe he's not his best anymore. He's on the wrong side of 30, but I think next year he can still have one of those at his best seasons. And then maybe, 2 seasons of top 10 defenseman play. But the Devils have a top 10 defenseman. And when was the last time that they've had even a top 10 defenseman? I mean, Andy Green has been the best defenseman, He was the guy that was the closest in the past, I guess, decade.
Mm-hmm.
And he was probably fighting for top 20. So, it's huge to have this many right-handed defensemen on this team.
Well, the other, look, if you look at Damon Severson's stats last season, played all 82 games, 11 goals, 28 assists. The only glaring sign I didn't like is the minus 27, but let me tell you, the entire team sucked last season, except for the first 4 games. But if you can get over that, not too crazy about his shooting percentage, but if you can get over that, you have Severson, Subban, and Vatanen. 3 right. The balance of that, and then how do we round this out? Butcher, Green. Who's got that last spot? Sorry.
Oh, it's so here's how I'm building right now.
It could be Ty Smith in a year or two, or maybe
it's Ty Smith right now. Ty Smith is making this team out of training camp. 100%. I will put money on it. Can I go to William Hill? Do we have William Hill as a sponsor yet? William Hill's sponsoring everybody. Is he sponsor of this podcast yet?
No. But if they do, I hope that William Hill will put money towards our private jet, the $35 million private jet that we're raising money for, where we need to sell 1.7 million Let's Go Devils podcast t-shirts. But William Hill, we're not going to have to do that, because you could be a brand partner of the Let's Go Devils podcast and the State of the Fan address. We'll have to work out a little side deal, Nick.
Oh, I like side deals.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah.
So I went off a little bit, but so the way I'm building it off the top of my head, and I'll kind of get into this more as the offseason goes and we start getting a bigger picture of who we have. But I think that I'm moving, I'm going to put Sammy Vatanen on that left side to start the season and pair him with PK. Then in that second line, I'm going to try out Severson and Butcher. I want to see, Butcher fell on his face a little bit last year because he was given a much more defensive role and he was given a lot more responsibilities. And with all those injuries, there was times where, he was the best defenseman on the ice some nights, and I think that he's now used to that role. And here's something surprising. You mentioned Damon Severson, and Damon Severson had, all of his advanced stats that he had a really, 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 really good season. Damon Severson, Mirko Mueller, and Butcher are all the same age. They're all 24. Damon Severson is 24. This kid hasn't even hit his prime yet, and he's having great seasons. And you get to put him on the second line behind PK Subban for at least the next 3 years. And then I think you want to pair him with Butcher. I think you want him to, I know they play a similar-ish style-ish. I want to, because I feel like Damon plays an offensive two-way game while, Butcher's an offensive defenseman. But then you could put Ty Smith with Andy Green on that last line. You'd have to get Ty to play on the right side, but I think he can. He's young. And I think he's got to rocket up a shot. I've seen him play on the right side in the power play sometimes at Spokane. Every so often. He was mostly on the left side, but I've seen him play that right side and be okay. And then you get Connor Carrick and Mueller as the extras. We know the Devils like to carry 2 defensemen, especially on those long road trips. They like to carry 8 defensemen and put 2 in the owner's box. So right now, this team is stacked top to bottom defensively, and that's weird to say. There's literally, I think that, a lot of people have been saying they might go after a left defenseman in free agency. I think that if you keep everybody on the team as is right now, I don't think you can. Maybe if I've heard a couple of people talk about trading Sami Vatanen because he's in the last year of his deal, and I get that. But if you don't, if you go into this season sign your RFAs, your Mueller, Butcher, and Carrick, I think that this is a really good defensive core, and I think that night in, night out, you have depth. You have Carrick, who played really well last year when he came over from that Ben Lovejoy trade with Dallas, and he could slot in for a night if you want to give Andy Green a rest on those back-to-backs. You just have a lot of options here.
Yeah, just remember the Stanley Cup teams the Devils had. They were stacked with defensemen. Remember Richard Schmelik? What was he, the 8th or 9th? Oleg Tverdovsky had to sit Game 7, 2003 Stanley Cup Finals. How can you not dress Ken Danico in his last game of his career for that game?
Yeah.
So Pat Burns at that time pushed all the right buttons because he had a lot of defensemen at his disposal. If you remember, even in 2000, getting Vladimir Malakoff was
big.
A big deal back then. Also, even in 95, if you remember Kevin Dean. Remember Kevin Dean in 95?
I do remember Kevin Dean.
Yeah, coming up from
way back when I was young in '95. I was a whippersnapper, but Kevin Dean is one of those people that just sticks in your head.
Oh yeah, and but whatever happened to Kevin Todd? I know this is off topic, but whatever happened to him? He was going to be the next great one, like Brendan Morrison. I thought those two were going to stay for a very long time.
I haven't heard that name, and it's got to be 5 years.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
So,
you're coming up with blasts from the past.
It's I know. Well, according to this YouTube subscriber Felony, none of us on the podcast know anything about the Devils prior to 2000. So, I had to Google it this morning because to have some material of prior to 2000 Devils players. Anyway, sorry.
We'll save it for the Devils Trivia podcast. How about that?
Yeah. So, are we going to go to UFAs soon, or?
Yeah, no, that's what's going on next. That literally just happened today. The qualifying offers came out today. I just want to talk about Nason real quick, and we got off track and talked about the defensemen, but let's talk about the unrestricted free agents. So,
okay, unrestricted.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, we could touch on the restricted after, just kind of seeing if you think it's worth it to go big or go home. But before we go, that was a tease. That was a professional news tease right there, Sam. You could take some notes on that one. But let's talk about the unrestricted free agents. So obviously at the top, I think the Devils are out on most of the guys at the top. The guys I thought that they could be in on I thought that they had, a snowball's chance to maybe go after Erik Karlsson, but he resigned in San Jose. I thought they had a realistic chance of giving all of the money to Jeff Skinner, but Buffalo gave him all the money before he got to free agency. There's a couple bullets that we dodged, but let's talk about some of the best guys in the market. I don't think they're going to be in on Panarin. Panarin's coming to New York this week. He's going to talk to the Islanders. He's going to talk to the Rangers. I think he's going to sign with the Islanders. That's my gut feeling. I think that Lou is going to show him how good this team is going to be. I think that the Islanders need a player like that. I think that he fills a big role. I think that Anders Lee is asking for very long term, like a lot more years. So I think that Panarin's probably going to go to the Islanders or maybe Florida. But I think then, one of the other top guys is Bobrovsky. I think he's going to Florida. We don't need a goalie, so we can just move past him. We talked about defensemen. I don't think they're going to give a lot of money to a defenseman if they get one. So I think that takes Jake Gardiner off the table. I know a lot of Devils fans were really into he had good advanced stats when he came to Toronto, but having Morgan Riley there really helps him, I think. And he just wasn't asked to do a ton, but somebody's going to give him a lot of money. And a guy that I'm thinking, or I'm hoping, I'm still hoping, because who knows what happens in NHL free agency, but I'm really happy we're not in the market for Tyler Myers. I just don't think he's that good.
What about, and I think we discussed this on a previous podcast, but I don't know what happened if he got bought out. Dion Phaneuf. Would you bring him in at this stage of his career, knowing that you've already got your mobile defenseman that can move the puck, shoot the puck, pass the puck, but have that stopper on the third pairing? And I can't believe I'm saying Dion Phaneuf in the third pairing, but
there's better defensemen in the market. If we're going to bring in a guy like that, a guy I've really liked is Anton Stroman, and I think he's a guy that's been playing for the Lightning for the past couple of years. He's a guy that I thought could possibly be a cheaper signing, somebody who could kind of come in for maybe 2 years, $3-4 million a pop, even if you had to give him $5. But I just looked at the state of the right-handed defenseman in free agency, and he might get paid because I think he's the second best one. Mm-hmm. I'm just it makes me sad because I really thought that we had a chance to get him, and I really thought that he'd be a good fit. But and he was also right-handed, and we've been talking about how we're pretty stacked on that side, on the right side. So I just don't think that he's gonna happen. I think that if you're gonna take chances, you might as well take chances on Mueller and Carrick at this point. If you're gonna take guys that possible third pairing guys, I think you just take the guys that are in-house. Josh Jacobs, maybe if he has a really good offseason, can fight for one of those roles. With Ty Smith coming,
switching gears from the defense to forward, Matt from the Facebook Live group asked, do you think Rooney proved himself last year to be the fourth line center, or do you think the Devils should try to sign Boyle or Boyle-like player?
I think it's Boyle or bust. You either bring Boyle himself. He fit in perfectly with this team. He was the perfect veteran. He was the perfect role model. He bought in. He was everything to this team. I used to joke that he was my hero, and he still is. A guy who fights cancer while still playing hockey, comes back, month and a half into the season is out of this world. He starts scoring goals. He's on the power play. He's playing a really big role. Last year, we forget this, but he was playing PK minutes for us, and he was doing well. He was playing on the, at one point we were the number 3 penalty kill in the entire league. I think that's the guy. And honestly, I don't think that Boyle is going to take his place because Boyle played mostly wing last year. They moved him to left wing. So I think if anything, they're going to put the only way Rooney's a hard case for me. I don't know what they're going to do with Rooney because he's on a one-year deal, one-way deal. So if they send him to the minors, he's going to go through waivers. And they've tried some fancy things to put people through waivers. It's worked sometimes. It hasn't worked other times. I remember the Devils lost Urbom all those years ago because they tried to fancily put him through waivers. And Adam Oates, who just went to become the head coach of the Washington Capitals, claimed him. And the Devils tried to claim him again later in the year, and then he just bounced around. We all know that Urbom never turned into anything. But they did the same thing with Nick Lappin last year, and he made it through. So they got to keep Nick Lappin. Point being is that I think that they could sign Boyle to play wing on that fourth line, play some PK minutes, I don't know if you need him in the power play anymore, but if you want to keep that style of power play where you have a big body in the front of the net, get in the way of the goalie, just frustrate people while, a Hughes or a Nico or a Brad or a Bokus or whoever is just dangling and, you're basically just playing him as a wall. I think you could bring him in, but I don't think he stands in the way of Rooney. I think other people stand in the way of Rooney. I think the impending, what are you going to do with Pavel Zacha? Are you going to really have your former 6th overall pick be your fourth line center? Or do you move him to wing, play him next to maybe a Zajac on the third line? There's some shuffling that they're going to have to do. But I think that there's better players outside of Boyle. I'm sorry. I think outside of Boyle, they're not going to sign a fourth line guy. I think that they're going to focus on top 6, Boyle, and then that's it. But a guy I do really like, and I've liked him for years. I've been asking the Devils to get him for years. Is Gustav Nyquist. Nyquist he's just a goal scorer. He's been on the Detroit Red Wings, and he's had up and down seasons. He's been really good and not so good, then really good, then not so good, then decent, then not so good, then good, and then this past year was good again. But I think he's gonna, I think he could come out of this and be, a top 5 free agent signing out of this year because of that inconsistency. He's probably not going to sign him for. Let me see what it says his contract is going to be. The Sharks don't seem like they're going to sign him because they just gave Carlson all the money. So Gustav Nyquist, I use the Evolving Wild contract tool, and it's a really great tool. You need to look at this, Sam. They basically guess what everybody is going to sign for. And he's got Nyquist he's got Nyquist signing a 6-year deal, $5.6 million. I don't think Cheryl's going to do that. I was thinking more of a 3-year deal, about the similar term, about 5.5 to 6.5, somewhere in that range. And I think you could get a guy, he's 29 years old. He kind of really found his stride in San Jose. He was surrounded by interesting talent. I think Detroit's a mess. And I think they just have issues that they're not fixing. So I think that he got put in that situation in San Jose and really thrived. And I think that he could do that again, playing with the Jack Hughes or a Nico Hischier or whoever you end up pairing him with.
Okay. Well,
I'll just talk about 2 guys real quick. We got to let these guys, these fans get to their nights. It's a Tuesday night. It's very exciting. It's a lot of Devils news today. So one guy I want you to tell me about is, what do you think of Matt Zuccarello? Now, my push for Matt Zuccarello is he is 32. He's getting the older side. He's past his prime. If you could give him a considerable deal where, maybe if it's a slight overpayment but not too bad, but it's on the short term, 2 to 3 years, not only do you sign the player, but you take him away from Dallas, and if Dallas resigns him, they give another pick to the Rangers, and we want to take picks away from the Rangers, don't we, Sam?
Oh yeah. On that note, I have to play it. Sorry. Sign Zook.
And then the one other big name that I think I've seen a lot of Devils fans say we should try for is Anders Lee. Anders Lee is the negotiation is not going well with New York right now. It looks like he's going to market. It looks like that, Lou lets these guys get to market and lets them see what's out there. And he's lost them before. And this guy's the captain. The Islanders might lose captains 2 years in a row. Sam, do you think that Anders Lee is a guy that would fit in this team?
Only for at the right price. I know the Devils have cap space right now, but I know, is he unrestricted, Jordan Eberle? Is he going to be
Eberle resigned with the Islanders.
Okay. So he did resign.
Yeah, so Eberle's gone. The last guy I'll bring up real quick, and then we could send them on their way. What do you think about Marcus Johansson?
Only because I love that old Twitter account.
Yeah. It's just not. I mean, it's still good.
You know what? Look, this is not a knock on him. Those head injuries that he had when he was with the Devils, they scare me. And he got to play in the Stanley Cup playoffs with Boston, and they made it pretty far. But I don't know. I want. He took. It's not his fault per se, but I'm not interested in a second tour of duty with Marcus. It's not a knock on him. I just think if you're going to bring somebody back, it's probably Brian Boyle for the fact of his leadership, the intangibles, and in the locker room, and with all the young players on this roster, and now Jack Hughes. I think having a Brian Boyle in the locker room, not only to as a leader, but Jack Hughes, they're going to be gunning after him. The league, he's the first overall pick, and
that's just what they're doing. He's good.
Yeah, and I think what the Devils need right now, they've already got a lot of talent, speed, a lot of young speed and talent. But what they need, and this has been lacking for so many years and needs to be addressed, they need that grit. If you ask me, look at Lou Lamoriello across the river, okay? They lose Tavares, but somehow they make it to the playoffs, right? They pass the first round. That's, to me, overachieving. A lot of credit goes to Barry Trotz. But look at that fourth line. What that told what was it, the Clutterbuck? I forgot the other two, but it's not registering right now. But the Clutterbuck line, I thought to myself, in this new NHL age, going into 2020, is that energy line is it still relevant, or do you have that fourth line of talented players? The Devils are going to need that energy. They've got it in Miles Wood. If they can re-sign Boyle, they've got a guy that doesn't take any crap. But I just think that they need to be more forceful. I think Subban is going to help them on the blue line. He's got a lot of energy and a lot of pep, and he's not going to back down in a scrum. And I think that's what the Devils are kind of lacking. They've got tremendous speed and talent, but there's times where it's like, guys, can you just defend the goalie for once? Knock him off his skates. I know the game is played differently than it was 20 years ago, but the way Lou put that team together on Long Island, I still think, some of that's still relevant. Now, the Goons back in the days, that's almost out. That's a lost art, and it's almost out of the game at this point compared to what it used to be. But I think if we can find a player in unrestricted free agency that has, decent offensive talent, but also has size and grit, I think that goes a long way. To deal with
now, Sam,
the Lucic and the Marchands of the world, mind you, because they did not retaliate after what Marchand did, and it still pisses me off.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. But what if I told you there was a guy like that already in the locker room? What if I told you there was a guy who was 6'4", over 200 pounds, looked like he's built for this, and he showed that he has a scoring touch? What if I told you that man was Nathan Bastian?
Ooh. Well, hey.
What? How about? Well, hold on. How does this sound? 6'6" left wing, 6'3" center, 6'4" right wing. That is what the Devils' fourth line would be if you had a line of Boyle, Zacha, Bastian. On the fourth line, Sam, those are three guys who can score and can also beat you up. That is your grit line, but it's a grit line for 2019 NHL because all three of those guys have skill. All three of those guys have a shot. Yeah, they're not going to beat you in a foot race, but they're going to grind you down, take the puck from you, run past you. Zacha could go up, and then you get the puck to him, and he's we've seen him scoring breakaways before. He's done those on the penalty kill before. So he's got, that's the only time he does score is on the penalty kill was last year. So you put those three guys together, that's a huge, huge, huge line. And then you got the other energy line, which would be Blake Coleman, Travis Zajac, and Miles Wood. And that's a bottom six that brings the old school and the new school together. And then you get a top six where you got Hughes, you got Bratt, you got Nico, you got Hall, you got Palmieri, and then whoever they end up putting on the right side there. Sam, and if you put Boquist on that line, and I'm talking about right now without signings, without any more trades being done, playing at the cap floor, I just gave you a gorgeous top and bottom six. Our 12 it's good. It's good right now. Sam, I honestly think that if you get the play of Corey and McKenzie from that full second half, I'm not even talking about at their best stretches. If you take the second half as a whole from both of them and you get a 9-10 to 9-15 goal lead, I think we have a playoff team on our hands.
Yeah, I never thought about Nathan playing that fourth line. I forgot about that guy. It actually just slipped my mind. And, we said, the Devils getting lucky and getting Hughes changed everything. The mindset has changed. Even as a fan, it's changed. I feel like we're going to win the Stanley Cup because remember, this team did make the playoffs barely, over a year ago, just barely. We always felt that Taylor Hall was just carrying too much of the team. He had an MVP type season that, may or may not happen again, but he'll get close. Hopefully.
He was on pace. He was on pace to score another 90 points.
But do you think that team, it's not on paper right now, and the way you described it sounds great, but how would that team fare against Tampa Bay Lightning in the regular season and in the playoffs? Tampa is stacked.
Stacked. But here's the thing about Tampa Bay is we just saw a team that was thrown together at the deadline sweep them.
Yeah.
And obviously, you're not going to become the Tampa Bay Lightning today. Tampa Bay Lightning were built over a 10-year period, and now they're at where they're at, and they had some luck too. The Devils need to have some luck. They need Joey Anderson to step up. They need, some of those guys they got in the later rounds, and they need Michael McLeod and they need Zacha to finally play. They don't have to play like where they were drafted, especially Zacha. We don't have to expect them to play like where they were drafted, but they have to play at least like first-round picks. Play like the 25th overall pick. I can't have you out here scoring 25 points a season. We need them to step up to some degree, and then we need to have a little luck. We need Boquist to work out, and we need another Bratt. And then that's how the Lightning got to where they are. They drafted well. They made the right moves. they didn't make, that move with the Rangers sounded like it cost a lot, but getting JT Miller as part of that deal for Ryan McDonagh was huge. It was gigantic. And it's paying dividends again because they just got a first round pick for him. So, and we could end on this, Sam. I think that we have the roster now, but it makes more sense to make a move for a top 6 guy, because once you get that second right wing, or if you want to put Brad on the second right wing and you get another left wing, then you're cooking, you're cooking with gas. You're cooking with gas.
Oh, yeah.
Then the fire is going.
Well, it should be interesting how the team is put together and if the chemistry is there. On paper, this all sounds great, but it's once you get into training camp and once you put the team together, and I'm sure John Hines will be working these guys hard in training camp. Their practices can be very difficult, but it's just a matter of playing the game. Start playing the puck. Start moving. Last year was last year. This is a totally different mindset right now when the Devils drafted Jack Hughes.
Sam, I've never been more excited for a season to start. Even after, because the last time I was this excited after a season was 2012. And obviously I wasn't happy that we lost, but that was one of my favorite playoff runs. And then we went to a lockout. So it wasn't exciting. So this season, we won the draft lottery. We won draft weekend by trading for PK Subban. And I have a feeling we're going to make a signing. We're not going to make, I don't want to say a splash because I don't think it's going to be a big guy, but it's going to be like a Nyquist or somebody of that caliber. Maybe Dzingel. I don't like Dzingel personally, but I can feel like it's going to be like that to fill out the top 6, top 9, depending on where you see Boquist. But big things are happening and big things are coming, Sam.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I just want to thank all of our viewers, listeners, tuning in live. Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, Matt, for your great questions. Wow. I think we're almost finished with episode 9. I guess we'll be back next week for another edition of State of the Fan Address on the Let's Go Devils Podcast Network. We will be probably back live July 1st before the next State of the Fan Address. Right, Nick?
Yeah, I expect our next State of the Fan to come about, it depends. It depends on if the Devils make a big signing or a big move, we'll go on soon after. If they make, no moves, we'll go on at 8 and we'll talk about them doing no moves or whatever time we end up going on.
Awesome. Well, we're going to drop the podcast probably in about the next hour. Till next time, let's go Devils.